Guys, what's up? Darcy here at Six Strings Nine Lives. I'm back for a thread response that's going around. That was started by my good friend Mike over at the Metal Mickey channel. The thread is called the Blinkers thread. And at first I had no idea, what are we having a signal light thread? Because that's kind of what it means here where I live in Canada. Turn on your blinker to turn left or right, whether you're in your vehicle or motorcycle, whatever your means of transportation is. But what it means, or what it's known as here, is blinders. Like horse racing, they put on these blinders so the horse cannot see off to the sides and only forward. So this is the blinders thread. We won't change the name, but that's kind of what it's known as here. So the premises of this is Mike, throughout the challenge, prove you don't have the blinders or blinkers on and accept any old shit from your favorite genre. Basically show 5 crappy or subpar albums from your choice, either glam metal, death metal, thrash metal. I'll tell you the years he has some parameters for years that you had to be within. I'll tell you that in a minute. But show them. And I thought, you know what? I could do this. I'm going to do this one. I might do another one. Death metal, I didn't know back then, so I can't really, jump in on that one. But I was thinking back to a thread that, give me a second here. A thread that I was involved in, and a lot of people were involved in a couple of years ago, I think already, called 10 Terrible Albums That Weren't Saint Anger. Just a little bit of fun, but man, you go into those comment sections and people are losing their shit. It was actually pretty humorous. Just remember, this is just for fun. The last thing you need to be is defensive about albums that you love. If you love them, you love them. Different albums mean different things to different people. The 5 bands that I'm going to show you here today, I really love all these bands. I grew up with them. I don't necessarily hate these 5 albums. A couple of them, you might shake your head and say, why are you showing that? But I'll explain as I go, because there's probably 2 or 3 here for sure that are high profile albums that I have always been a bit critical on. And that's the fun part, is just hearing people's take on certain albums. And yes, you can hold up an album and be critical about it, and you might just think, what is he thinking? But like I said, we hear things differently. But again, shouldn't have to remind people that this is for fun, but we will anyways. Throw it down in the comments. 5 of your subpar albums. So Mike has, before I forget, Mike has glam metal. The years, the parameter is 87, 88, and 89. That's the one I'm going to do today. There's also thrash, that's 86, 87, 88. Or, like I said, not one I know a big deal about back in the day. I do kind of now, but death metal, 91, 92, 93. I don't think I could name you 5, shitty albums or subpar or whatever, overrated. But today we're going to talk about 5 albums that I actually have been critical in the past on my channel about some of these. And again, doesn't mean they're total shit. That's not what it's all about. But let's start off with the one that will, maybe think, that's a tough to swallow, that one. But I'll explain. First one is Motley Crue, Girls, Girls, Girls. Now, the ironic part about this album is this one contains my favorite overall Motley Crue song called Wild Side. But what I've always been critical on is, for sure, Jailhouse Rock ending an album, a live song. Absolute waste of time. Don't need it. I would have rather they just did the album without it. Let me pull this out of the case. So this is my original cassette from back in the day. So I thought we'd just do that, show a cassette today. But the first half of this album is actually there's 4 really strong songs on here, in my opinion. Wild Side, of course. Girls, Girls, Girls is a pretty good song. Dancing on Glass and Bad Boy Boogie are the 4 So those are the 4 that I really enjoy. But side 2, big drop off. Actually, side 1, that Nona, that instrumental, just kind of thrown in there. And then just kind of some filler on side 2 as far as I'm concerned. I do love Motley Crue. Like I've said, I have box sets. I have, you know, I mean, I love albums like Shout at the Devil and Too Fast for Love. But this one, and I even love Theater of Pain, which probably, I'm sure if somebody does this response video, they might even hold up that album. But not me. This is the one. But again, I don't hate this album, but it's not as, in my opinion, it's not as good as people make it out to be. So let's go with, here's a band that I absolutely love their debut album, but they didn't stick to that formula, and that's Great White. Their debut is phenomenal metal album. Got to see them open for Judas Priest on the Defenders of the Faith tour. But after that, they started their second album, Shot in the Dark. They started to make some changes. Their third album, Once Bitten, they made a lot of changes. More blues, based rock, with still, you know, a good mixture of hard rock, rock and roll, whatever you want to say. And I didn't hate it, but I always wish they would have went back. So, and you know this album, this is not the one I'm going to refer to because I really do enjoy this album. I think this is much stronger than the one I'm going to show you. I feel like this one's overrated and carried by that cover song. But the one I'm going to show you is Twice Shy. So basically the second part of this. And what I think is, my theory is, you know, obviously they had the title Once Bitten. And whether they had Twice Shy already in their mind that their next album would be called, I don't know. But when they threw in that cover song, I think maybe they saved the cover song for this album just to save the album, because these basically are probably the weaker tracks that were left over from Once Bitten. I don't know. There are a couple of really great tracks on here. Like Move It, the opener, is really good. Heart the Hunter, but man, does it fall off quick after that. I don't know. Just, and that cover song of Once Bitten, Twice Shy, I could, if I never heard it again, I'd be fine. But I do get that the appeal to it and why they would do it. And obviously with it, you know, 2 albums called Once Bitten and then ... Twice Shy. But this one was always a big drop off for me. But do I still listen to it? Yes, I do. But there's my second one. All right, third coming up. Now, 1987, 2 albums, 2 huge albums released. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, and the debut by Faster Pussycat, self-titled. I love both albums. I bought both albums on the same day. They were released 2 weeks apart, but I purchased them on the same day. I think the release day of Appetite is when I bought both, and I love both to this day, so I'm not holding those up. But what I'm going to hold up is, sorry, my mouth is dry, is the follow-up to the self-titled album from Faster Pussycat, Wake Me When It's Over. Now, this has some really good tracks, but the good on here is really good, but the bad is just bad or average. It's just, it's not an album. I can hardly sit through this whole album. In fact, I like their third album better, called Whipped. It's got a little more variety, a little bit of experimentation, but like, don't get me wrong on the good tracks here. Where there's a whip, there's a way. That's a really good song. Poison Ivy, House of Pain, but and maybe the title track, Slip of the Tongue. Or sorry, not Slip of the Tongue. That's like Poison, isn't it? But anyways, Slip of the Tongue. But overall, just a bigger drop off for me. And like I said, yeah. And if you haven't checked out Whipped, their third album, go check that one out. I like it. I'll still put the debut here, but this one would be definitely third in that batch. Like I said, the strong songs are strong, but the weak is weak in my opinion. And sometimes I don't personally get the appeal that people see in this. But just remember too, timing has a lot to do with anything in music. When you were born, what was your first album? Maybe Wake Me When It's Over was your first Faster Pussycat album. So you have that connection. So, and like I said, that's why this is just for fun. We all can't like everything, that's for sure. Next up, this is probably a bigger album across the pond in 87. But here, it was a drop off for me. I don't know. I still feel like this one is a little overrated, but this is Kiss Crazy Nights. And yes, I am a Kiss fan. I did a Kiss ranking that went over pretty good overall because, but I noticed with Kiss fans, they're all over the board. There is all ages of Kiss fans for sure. There's people that just love the 70s or the 80s. I love the 70s and the 80s, but this is getting 87, produced by Ron Nevison. You got that keyboardy sound, really glammed up quite a bit on, even the not makeup, but the clothing, things like that. But there is some couple of good tracks on here, but I think overall the quality is weak. Crazy Crazy Nights is a good title track. I'll Fight Hell to Hold You, but then you got songs like Bang Bang You. One of my actually favorite Gene songs is Hell or High Water. Then you got Reason to Live. Never been a big fan of that one. Turn on the Night and Thief in the Night. Not great tracks to wrap this one up, but yeah, always had a bit of criticism for that album. Again, if you like it, you like it. And finally today, we're going to show a little bit of my, a band from my country, from Canada, Killer Dwarfs. Now they had their debut came out on Attic Records in 85 or 86. Really more metal edged to that album. Really good, great production. Then they were dropped from Attic Records and they self-produced their next album called Stand Tall in 86 or 87. I think 86. I do have a copy of it on vinyl. Lucky to have a copy of it on vinyl. Another great album. But then they signed their major label deal with CBS Records, and they came out with this called Big Deal, which, meaning they signed a big deal, a record deal. Now this one is one of their weakest as far as I'm concerned. There's always a couple good tracks. We don't have to go over that all the time, but where is that? We Stand Alone, that was I think that was the first single. Tell Me Please, Desperados, Union of Pride, but just, again, or not again, but label involvement for sure. You can just feel it, the direction that they pulled bands. So, some of these albums that aren't your favorite or a little subpar or pure shit might be, or most likely is, some label pressure. And that happened all through the 80s. We all know that, but still a solid album, but just not one I go to as often as other ones from Killer Dwarfs. And if you are new to the band, their follow-up to this was called Dirty Weapons. I encourage you to go check out Dirty Weapons or check out the one that came before this called Stand Tall, which desperately needs a reissue. Actually, anything from Killer Dwarfs need reissues. They're very solid. But yeah, I think that's my 5. Did we get all 5? Yeah, we did. So I think I might think about doing the thrash version of this one too. And the death metal, no, I'm probably out on that one. But I will leave a link to Mike's channel, and you can check out his latest 2 or 3 videos, depends when I post this, pertaining to this thread and all his other cool content. And yeah, go from there. And yeah, hope you had fun with this, or hope you do have fun with this. you know what? If you want to lose your marbles, that's cool too. But until next time, stay heavy.